Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Marin. I am an aspiring author. I'm currently working on a post-apocalyptic dystopian trilogy with a bit of romance, and it's going to be called Fall of Men. And today I wanted to talk about something that is not an emotional or controversial topic at all. It's not going to make anyone angry, what I'm about to say, nor is it going to spark any kind of conversation in the comments. And yeah, this is just a really easy thing to talk about. Talking about AI. Because we just can never stop talking about AI. That is the world that we live in today. The world is being shaped by AI. You know what? Climate change, ecological collapse, fuck it. We have AI now. We are living in the stupidest timeline. But today, I wanted to focus a little bit more on something a little bit more specific, and you will know by the title of this video. I'd like to make the case today to writers specifically to stop using AI, period. Just stop using it. I'm a huge AI hater. And so I'm obviously biased in that, but I do want to make the case from a purely practical, pragmatic perspective, why writers in particular should stop using AI. There's been a lot of things that have come up recently. This is an ever evolving sort of environment when it comes to AI, but there's been a few things that have happened recently that have really only concretized my aversion to it. While I've noticed more and more people becoming more and more lenient about AI use, I'm among the opinion that actually we should be a little bit more rigid about not using it, and I'm going to explain why. Here are the reasons why I think writers in particular need to stop using AI. And so these reasons are not in any particular order. These are just kind of ideas that have come to me that I've been thinking about over the past little while. I have done an AI video before, and I was so hesitant to be really straight up honest about how I felt about AI. There's some moments of honest passion within that video, but I was still feeling a little unsure how other writers were feeling about it. And ever since then, I've become a lot more confident in my opinions because I have been staunchly against AI since the very beginning of it. And I'm not even going to get into all of the other sort of proclamations about the benefits of AI. I think that they are few and far between, and any of the benefits are probably going to be outweighed by the cost. You should really look into your undivided attention if you still believe in the sort of things that this is going to cure cancer, this is going to cure climate change. There's very little evidence to suggest that AI is going to solve any of those problems. So that is beside the point. I'm speaking as someone who, from an environmental perspective, I don't like AI. But also from a creative perspective, I don't like AI. There's more practical reasons also to not want to use this technology. And so let's dive in. One of the things that I've noticed, and you may have noticed this as well, a lot of people are starting to sound the same. And what's interesting is that even people who are saying, oh, I didn't use AI to generate this text, they're still sounding the same as everybody else. And what do they sound like? They sound like the AI accent. We all know what that sounds like at this point. It's like people using kind of metaphors that don't really make sense. It's not this, it's that, it's not X, it's Y, which by the way, that is a human thing to say. These are human things that we do. AI is trained on human work. So, it is reflecting ourselves back to ourselves. But then there's other sort of weird, staccato ways of communicating that people will do. There's this sort of melodrama to a lot of the communication. It's very corporate, very kind of clean, and again, it's using a lot of words, but it's not really saying a whole lot. If you're engaging with text-based media right now, you'll start to notice these patterns, and at least for me, I'm really starting to detect it. But what is interesting and what's important to pay attention to, a lot of these people who are sounding like AI are not using AI to generate text. So why do they sound like this? Why are they sounding like they are AI? And that's because if you're using AI as a mimetic creature, which is what you are as a human being, you are going to start adopting the accent and the inflections and the cadence of the thing that you're communicating with. If you are talking to AI all the time about any random thing, you are probably going to start adopting some of these tendencies in your own writing as well. It's just natural. It's just the same thing as if you read only Stephen King, you're probably going to be writing novels that are akin to Stephen King. And so as a writer, why would you want your voice to be transformed into an amalgamation of all voices that all sound the same? It's a very clone-like cadence. You can tell immediately when you're reading someone's work because they sound the same as everybody else. There's no voice to it. It's all just the same sort of and I don't want to say things like slop, because oftentimes it's not slop. It's oftentimes quite fine and normal. But I think that there's something really fun about being a writer where your own personal experience, your own personal attitude and quirks and unique vocabulary can come out in your writing. And if you're relying on AI, even using it not for writing, you might start to adopt a certain type of cadence, certain types of syntax and vocabulary, and that will, over time, diminish your ability to write in your own voice. All right, my next reason. So there's a lot of people, and again, I said before that people are becoming a lot more lenient with AI use, and this is something that this is something that I don't like. I think that people need to have stronger spines. But one of the things that people are often saying is that they just use it for feedback, or they just use it to brainstorm, or they just use it for like a sounding board for their ideas. I don't understand this. Partly, mainly, because I don't care what the machine thinks about anything, let alone my ideas, let alone like brainstorming. And again, I'm not trying to say this stuff to like shit on anyone or like talk down to anyone, but I do think that it is worth being frank about how I feel about these things. But again, those are my more like subjective, biased opinions. The practical, pragmatic opinion, if you're still with me, is why would you want feedback from anything that is not your reader? Your reader is a human being with opinions and perspectives and life experience and all of these things. The machine is not those things. The machine is an amalgamation. It's a yes-no machine. It is an algorithm that is just, it's a predictive algorithm that is just responding to you. It doesn't have opinions, and its opinions actually don't have any bearing on reality, and it's not accountable to any of its opinions. And whereas getting a beta reader, yes, it's going to take more time. You're going to probably wait months. It's going to take a long time. You're going to have to deal with, human beings in your life, like reading your work and giving you their opinion. And it might bother you what their opinions are. But those people are your readers. They're human readers. We're going to be reading your work. Unless you want a bunch of bots reading your books, which maybe you do, you actually, the feedback that should really matter to you is not just the like average of advice about writing. It should be really genuinely like authentically from human beings, because that's presumably who you want to read your book, right? So just to be crystal clear, I don't think that people should be using AI for feedback. I was very annoyed to see like Abby Emmons. I think her content is great. I think that, I learned a lot from her, but like her promoting the pro writing aid feedback, I'm like, girl, what? Like, no, don't. Why would I care what the freaking pro writing aid has to say about my book? That's just crazy. As I said in my previous video, where again, I was being a little bit like wishy-washy about my opinions about all of this, but like my main point was like, this is a really slippery slope. You allow AI to do one thing for you, and you will start slowly letting it do other things for you. It's this idea of efficiency that I just fundamentally like have philosophical disagreements with. But my main problem with it is like, this idea that it's like, well, but like you should just get your book out as fast as you can. And like, it's going to take so much time to get beta reader feedback. Like, that's fine. It's actually fine for it to take time. This is art. This is not like a I don't see my books as just like products, but maybe I'm crazy, but I don't see my books as just like products. It's like, that's just not how I see the world. But I like it's okay to take the time. Like, just because it's more fast and efficient to get feedback from AI doesn't mean that the feedback is even worth anything at all. So I would really encourage you to like put yourself out there, get feedback from people. I know it's scary. I get that it's scary. You can, you can make excuses all day long that this is scary and you don't want to do it, but like you should do it anyway. Like, do it. If you want to be a writer and you want to have readers, you're going to have to deal with people reading your stuff. Like, this is part of the practice of like being a writer. And it feels weird to be like encouraging people to like offload that and sort of shortcut through that. Like, what? But, and then also again, this is my main diatribe here. AI is like the perfect thing to skip all of the processes that are actually required for you to be a good writer. Getting feedback is one of those things. Learning how to self-edit, that is one of those things. Learning how to developmental edit your own work, that is another one of those things that you need to be developing on your own. And I know people are going to be like, but what about editors? Like, what about all these things? I don't care. Like, yes, you can pay for those things and that's great. And you should, like, if you need that help, if you desire that help, if you want that help. And also, you probably should get a copy editor of your book no matter what. What I'm talking about is that getting an editor does not mean that you should not also have the skills to self-edit on your own. I don't get why people act like if I say that you should learn how to self-edit, that means that I'm saying that editors shouldn't exist. Like, can we be for real? Again, I just think that we should be very, very cognizant and careful around like giving over too much of our creative process to these machines, that they do atrophy our ability to like not be dependent on them. They are a very great domesticating tool. And I think that we should resist that domestication if at all possible. And like, to be frank, it is very possible to resist it. You don't have to use it. And so, okay, so then here's another reason. Here's another thing. People always like to say, but like I came up with the idea, but then the AI just helped bring it into life. But the ideas are all me. Like that's all mine. And I know I'm getting like really passionate and animated in this, and I'm not trying to come across mean. I tend to be a little dickish when it comes to AI because it makes me so mad. Ideas, while important and powerful, they are like the smallest part of the process. They are the first little seedling that comes and flits into the ether and flits in front of your face, and it lands in the soil at your feet, and it is asking you to do all of the rest of the work to make sure that that thing is actually going to come into fruition. You know, you got to bury it in the soil. You got to make sure the soil is healthy. You got to add water to it. You got to add fertilizer to it. You got to make sure that it gets enough sun, but not too much sun. Anyway, I'm getting too overblown with this metaphor. The point being, the idea is the simplest part of the whole thing. Obviously, ideas complexify. You know, that's part of the process too, is that the idea grows and you have to discover what the idea really wants to become. But when it comes to the actual process of creation, the idea is the easiest part. That is the thing that that can come to anyone. Anyone can have the idea. I guarantee that your book right now that you're working on, that idea has come to someone else's brain. The problem, the thing that we have to do and that we have to decide as writers, what are we going to do with it? And a lot of people think, you know, and a lot of people like to say, you know, that the ideas are all me. And this is for me, like lurking on like the AI writing subreddit a bit. So I'm not just like pulling this stuff out of my ass. This is like what people say. But I really think that we need to consider like what is actually like the measure of like what matters in a story. Is it the idea or is it the execution? And I would lean more towards the execution because of the fact that within the execution is the process of creation. And the process of creation to me is the most important part. If a product is the most important part, then yeah, maybe the idea is the only thing that matters. But I think that is like, there's so many assumptions about the world that are baked into the worldview that says that the product is more important than the process. I don't believe that. And I think, again, AI is only a reflection of like us overvaluing product over process for a super long time. But like, you know, particularly since like the Industrial Revolution, art and artisans have been like devalued and rendered inert and inefficient and all of these things like since then, basically. And culturally, we've valued things like efficiency and products more than the process, which is partly why the world is falling apart. So from a philosophical perspective, I don't agree with this. And so when it comes to ideas, I think that I could get a million ideas a day. And if I can't execute them, I don't think that they're worth much. I don't think that the 200,000 AI books that are showing up on KDP every month are worth much. I don't think that that should be like controversial to say, but it feels like it is. Like, I think that's great that you have an idea. And I think that there's a million excuses that anyone can make about either not executing that idea or using AI to expedite and bypass the execution of that process. But I think they're just excuses. I actually just don't buy them. I think that, yeah, everyone wants their story in the world, but only a few people actually will do it. And I want to be one of the people who did it the hard way. And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, well, you're not using all available tools. Like, that's dumb and you're going to be left behind. And like, you know, you're going to not be successful. I think someone said that to me. They were like, good luck having no success as a writer. And I was like, okay. But anyway, I think that like, you know, there's a level of discernment that we have to have with the tools that we use. I just think that that's like so obvious. Like, obviously you shouldn't use every tool that's available to you. I think that's so clear. I think that especially when they're ones that are actively damaging to the world and to our minds and to our creativity, I think that, we should be resistant to those. And I know people are going to say, I've never been more creative. I've never had more output than with AI. That may be true. And I do think that there's a level of that, AI is allowing people to create things in ways that they never were able to create things before. Nevertheless, I think that this is a technology that will have extremely diminishing returns, because if you train yourself to be dependent on machines to do anything for yourself, you are not going to be you're not going to become worthy of the story that is inside of you. The art of writing a book is worth doing the hard way. I'm not saying using a quill and ink. That's what people always say is like, oh, you just want to go back to the medieval times and handwrite books. It's like, no, there's a huge difference between AI legitimately doing part, if not all of the writing process for you, and using a word processor. It's like, these arguments are so frustrating. And then, so another thing that I think that writers should be aware of, and I know I probably have lost like half of you because I'm being so snarky, but maybe some of you are still here, but this is an important one. There is always going to be a subset of people who will not want to read your work if you use AI to write it. And that could be in any capacity whatsoever. There's going to be people who are going to be like, oh, you used AI to copy edit your book. Oh, you used it to clean up your prose. There's all of these different things that people are using AI for. And they're like, I'm just using it for this and this and this and this. I think when I think about it, there are so many books in the world. There are so many things that I want to read. Genuinely, I don't want to read a book that people used AI to make. I have a limited amount of books that I can read in my life. I would rather give my limited, precious attention to someone who wrote the book entirely by themselves. Because that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing with my book. And so people might say I'm being discriminatory or whatever. Fair enough. But I also think it's a preference. And as someone who is writing my book clean of AI, and I know how hard it is, and I really can respect the process and the work that goes into it, I just can't imagine wanting to spend my time reading a book that someone used AI to write. It would just feel like, why did I give my attention to that when I should have given my attention to someone who really, really tried and who did it all by themselves? I think, and again, when I say all by themselves, I'm not discounting editors and publishers and all of these things. People I understand writing is a collaborative process in a lot of ways, but it's also 97 to 96% a completely solitary process. So I'm having to do a lot of throat clearing in this video. I feel like this is a topic where people just love to misunderstand everybody. So I've just seen a lot of commentary from people who use AI to write, where they're acting so victimized by the fact that people don't want to read their books because they used AI. And they're like, this is so unfair. It's so unfair that no one wants to read this, and that people are so biased against AI. And to that, I say, you do not get to act like a victim when you're using a technology that you did not need to use to create the book. There's no one holding a gun to anyone's head, forcing them to use AI to write a book. So it's that, but then also, the world doesn't owe any of us an audience. We actually have to earn that. And I know from experience how hard it is to earn an audience and to maintain it. And I've done a bad job with projects in the past of maintaining and deserving my audience. It's a hard thing to do. I'm not saying it's easy. But what I am saying is that you don't get to then act all bent out of shape when people don't want to read your work because you use something that you didn't have to use to expedite the process. People are well within their rights to never read your book, whether or not you use AI, but in particular, if you use AI and they have a moral qualm against it, or they, again, like me, have a preference of just supporting humans who are doing the work all by themselves. And I think also right now, AI, people want to complain about how there's a stigma from AI use. And it's yeah, there is, because it's there is a stain on your work if you use AI. That is something that is true, and that's how people feel. And you don't get to act like you're a victim because you chose to use that thing and now people are feeling like your work is stained by AI. That was a choice you made. That was a decision that you made. You didn't have to make that decision. And so, I just don't think that people have the right to complain that they don't have an audience when they didn't have to use AI. The next reason that kind of goes along with this sort of idea of like AI being stigmatized and a stain on your work, there's been a lot of scandals recently. The most prominent one, of course, is Shy Girl by Mia Ballard, which is not a book that I've read, and I probably won't read it, but I did watch Frankie Shelf's entire video about it. And I'm not here to like litigate whether or not she used AI. It sounds like she probably did, just because of the way that she was sort of like blaming her editor for using AI, which I think is really bizarre. Like, I can't imagine letting an editor like actually edit my book. That sounds insane. But like, this was a big enough scandal that it led her to lose her publishing deal. Like, she was self-published before. She got picked up by Hachette and they dropped her because of these AI scandals. And the trouble is that like AI detectors are really faulty and they don't actually work. It's a very complicated scenario where I actually don't think that the method by which they discovered or like determined that she was using AI was correct. For me, I'm more focusing on like her admission that she thinks her editor might have used AI. I feel like a lot of that could be very easily disproven if she just like full on never even considered using AI for any part of her process. So I think that like, if you can have like a really clear sense of the fact that like, no, I didn't use AI for anything, then like, I just feel like you're protecting yourself more. But if it's this sort of gray area where it's like, well, I just used it for copy editing. Well, I just used it for a little bit of line editing. Well, I just used it for cleaning up my prose a little bit. You're getting into like super, super murky water. And in a situation like that, you could lose your publishing deal. You could lose your publishing deal, and you are very likely to lose reader trust depending on the audience that you're cultivating. I personally, like, maybe there are certain audiences that don't give a rat's ass about AI use, and they're perfectly happy to read whatever AI slop exists. That is not necessarily the audience that I am trying to cultivate. I think that my audience is a lot more like ecologically minded. They're more critical of civilization and technology. And so it would be like a baffling, dumb decision for me to use AI in my books. Like, it just wouldn't make any sense. It would literally like ruin my chances at like having a successful career. So it's just like, it's just easier to make the decision of like, no, I'm just not going to use it. I'm going to play it safe. Like, I think a lot of people, again, they're wanting to produce at the pace of capitalism and technology. And I don't think that people should do that. I think that, I get that we live in this world that we have to like, compromise certain things to be able to live in this world and to create our works. But I think that when it comes to AI and writing, it is genuinely probably going to come back and bite you if you use it. I think that it will erode reader trust. And maybe I'm wrong about all of this. This is just my opinions. But like, I know for my specific niche and my specific audience that I would be cultivating, it would destroy my chances at being a published writer if I used AI. It would just make me a complete hypocrite. And, so this Shy Girl controversy happened. The Shy Girl controversy happened in traditional publishing. But right now, as mentioned before, it's like there's so much AI slop in the self-publishing market. And so, when it comes to like, you're trying to write your book and you're trying to wade through all of these other books that are like, vying for people's attention in this attention economy. Like, I think that it really would behoove everybody to write their own books and be able to stand up and be able to say that and be like, yeah, I don't use AI. This is an AI free book. And that will be something that will differentiate you for your self-publishing. But also, it's just likely that your book is going to be more unique because, again, like I said before, there's this sort of like AI style that's really easy to start detecting. Obviously, it's really hard to detect as well, but like it's easy to sort of pay attention. I'm sure if you read enough books that had a little bit of that like uncanny AI feeling to them, you'd start to be like, whoa, like this. Oh, it was Lydia Foxglove. She did a video like a couple days ago. I don't know when this is going to be posted, but like you can find it. But she did a video where she was talking about how like, all of the AI books, they're all essentially written by the same author because they all sort of have the same accent. And I just don't think that anyone in the world really wants to read like every single book by the same person. Like, we enjoy reading each other's different voices and like getting to experience the world from like different perspectives and different writing styles. And so this is like a good time to like really differentiate yourself while there's this like race to the bottom of the barrel with when it comes to AI. Like, I just really think that like writers are going to regret using this stuff. I think that it's going to make them less unique. It's going to make them less actually genuinely marketable. I think that it will be a stain on their work no matter how little they used it. I even think in the case of things like research, and again, you know, I get it, like with like, you know, you try to do a Google search and it shows up as Google Gemini. It's hard to avoid that when you're just trying to like use Google. But like, I even think that we're losing a lot if we just use the internet for research. I think there's a huge value to the serendipity that comes from, you know, you read a book and then you look in the footnote and then the footnote leads you to this other book and then you like are like, oh my God, that book, I never heard of it, but then there's like all this cool information, and oh my God, and then it gives you the ideas to go read a different book, and then you go over here and then you're like, oh my God, I didn't even know. And so you just like learn things like in this more organic process. Like the internet like actually does get in the way of that, and there's like cognitive offload even just using the internet. And so then when you just add like Google Gemini on top of a Google search, it just is like more cognitive offload. And I do think we're losing something. I think that there's a loss that happens with the entire, with like losing that entire serendipitous process. So like, you know, when people say like, just use all available tools, it's like, there is like a cost actually. There's like a trade-off that comes even if you think that it's not. What I was saying before about like, this is a really good time to be really authentic. I think that like, you know, a lot of flattening preceded this AI epidemic, this AI apocalypse, and a lot of flattening in storytelling, a lot of lack of originality. It's not like a unique thing to say that most of the movies out right now are like reboots or sequels or something like that. Like there's just seems to be this like dearth of originality. So AI is coming in and exposing, you know, a lot of the rot that has already existed, a lot of the algorithmic way of thinking about the world that has already been at play for, I mean, it's hard to put a number on it, but I would say at least for the past like 20 years right now. And this may just be like the niches that I'm in, but I really do feel like there's this yearning and longing for human creations. Like I feel like we're at the sort of the dawn of this like new renaissance, where human creations are going to be really, really valued. And so I do think that people are going to potentially risk their own ability to be a part of that renaissance, but also to just like be creative within it, by using AI. And again, I am biased in that like the path that I want to choose is a lot more nature-based, earth-based, a lot more right-brained. I have like a great resistance to the like path that modernity is on. So it's easy enough for me to be like, well, who wouldn't want to be a part of the Renaissance? I get it that there are people who are like, I just want to make as many billion books as I can. Like, that's what I want to do. That doesn't like resonate at all with me. I really do view myself as like trying to be an artist and like wanting to be an artist and wanting to take the time and go through the process of that. And when I think about a thing like a Renaissance, that excites me because I think that humanity is on a really dumb, terrible path. So for me, it's exciting to think of like, oh, there's like a path in a different direction, a more human direction. That's the path that I want to go on. If you believe in the path that global civilization's on, then the idea of a Renaissance is not going to be like very convincing to you. But for me, it personally is. So I get it. I'm kind of like leaning a little bit away from like the more pragmatic things. I'm not a very pragmatic person, to be honest, but here's something that's a little bit more pragmatic. And this is something that's a little complicated too. I don't want to misspeak right now, but this is something to be aware of. Currently, copyright laws, I believe, you cannot copyright AI generated content. This gets very kind of like confusing and messy when you consider like, you know, did I just use it for copy editing? Did I just use it for feedback? Did I just use it for like one of these other sort of like less like heavy-handed ways of using it? That is a big reason why Shy Girl was ultimately dropped. And that's because they just can't risk it. A publisher is not going to risk it. It's not good for their bottom line. If traditional publishing is important to you, I think it's good to avoid it. I also think it's good to avoid it with self-publishing because the same thing can happen with self-publishing too. But again, I think that this is an ever-evolving sort of problem. So again, I lie on the side of like, why risk it? I don't need AI to write a book at all. I genuinely don't need it. I don't want to use it. I don't care to use it. So why would I use it? Why would I even risk it? And then I think to close out this video, which I'm sure no one's mad at me right now, I want to read you guys this note that I saw on Substack the other day. And I think, again, for me, this is another reason why you should not use AI. And it's kind of akin to what I had said before, but it really has to do with the flattening of language and the flattening of your voice. We are so lucky to be able to be at a time where we can share our voices. And I think it's really disturbing how many of us are willing to sacrifice our voice, how many of us are willing to commodify ourselves and lose our voice in an age where we actually have so much access to being able to share our voices. And I think we should really give ourselves the best chance possible to be able to share our voices. And it's not about who is the loudest or who can produce the most and who can produce the quickest. I really think it's about like who is the most true, who is the most earnest and honest and like sharing of themselves in the most authentic way. I think that's the sort of cream that will rise to the top and usually does rise to the top. I mean, when you think about it, like when you think about like the most popular things or like the things, the sort of things that are a little weird and quirky that do become really popular, like maybe they're not as popular as like the most algorithmic thing that exists. You know, one of my favorite bands is 21 Pilots. And it's like how weird their music is and how honest and authentic they are. They didn't write music to be the most copy paste, most algorithmic. They make music that they want to make, that's unique to them. And they've developed this completely devoted fan base because of that. And so it's like, I just think that like when we think about like what success looks like, we should take cues from those people, like those people who are very authentic and earnest in themselves and like have something to say and are willing to say it and are brave enough to say it. I think those are the things that we should look at, not like asking AI to like make our book as clean as possible, because that's the thing that matters. We're just trying to make a pristine product. I think we should take our cues from 21 Pilots and like, you know, don't trust a perfect person and don't trust a song that's flawless. I want things to be weird and human. It's going to be the thing that like rises to the top at the end of the day. I really do think that. Maybe I'm naive, but I genuinely feel that way. But anyway, let me read this thing. I was going to read it and I fucking got distracted. My wife is a professional book editor and is looking sadder every day because a mounting percentage of the jobs being submitted to her say this: my book is my voice. I just ran it through AI for grammar. What they don't know, she tells me privately, is that every one of these books sound exactly the same, even across varying subjects. They don't know what AI is doing to the voice they think they have. If you read a lot of work on Substack, you can see it creeping in everywhere. Authors I've been subscribed to for years are making the decision to get a little help from AI, polish things up a bit, speed up the process, and you can see it and feel it. The tells are subtle until they're not. And then you just get sad about what is happening. In the individual case of each writer, I'm sure it feels like an improvement. En masse, it is the enshittification of communication. Every time any author gives up a corner of their authentic voice to the help of AI, it's like losing another species of insect or amphibian in the rainforest, a tragedy no one is tracking or shrugs away as just part of life in the modern world. Even if the AI help has sharpened the point being made, that's not why I read. I'm reading because it's you, and watching you fight for hard-earned clarity and a voice that is truly yours and get there over time is the thrill of this whole communication game. And so I know I got pretty saucy in this video, got pretty spicy. This is a topic that makes me very passionate. Again, I'm not trying to be mean, but people are invariably going to be offended by this video. Nevertheless, I think that it is important for people to speak plainly about this and frankly about this, because I do think it's something that people are going to become more lenient about. And, you know, that's the sort of the fear, this sort of, I think, fear that people experience when, you know, things are changing. It's really easy to believe the idea that like we're all going to be left behind if we don't use AI. And like, I really think that there's a part of us that just needs to be like, please leave me behind. I actually don't want to write a million stupid, shitty books. Like, I would rather write one good book in my entire life than a million shitty ones. A million shitty ones that I didn't care enough to write by myself. And I know I'm being like flamboyant about what I'm saying, but I do think as writers, we should be willing to be like very critical about this and be outspoken about this. And, you know, it genuinely doesn't come from a place of like hate or anything against people who use AI. I hate AI. I hate the technology, like genuinely. I want people to feel like they can do things on their own, like that they don't need this thing. Like, I really want people to feel how good it feels to write a book and know that you did it all by yourself and not have to worry. Like, no one, if anyone told me, like this sentence makes me think it's AI, it's like, well, you're wrong. It's not. There's no way it was, you know, like that's the sort of confidence I think I want people to have. Like, is just to not have to worry about that. Like there's enough to worry about when it comes to writing a book. Oh my God, it's hard enough. But to then be like, oh, now I'm all like paranoid that people are going to like notice that I used AI. If you haven't used it, then I think you're fine. Then you don't have anything to worry about. But it's when you do use it, even a little bit, like that's when that doubt is going to start creeping in. And again, genuinely from the bottom of my heart, I promise you, you do not need it to write your book. You don't. This technology has existed for 2 years. To believe that we need this is dumb. No, I'm sorry. But it is. It is dumb. We don't need this. We don't. And I think that like we'll be better off in every way possible if we don't use it. I genuinely think that. And I'm sorry to anyone who I have offended by my strong opinions about this. I'm not going to change my opinions about this probably. This is a big issue in writing. It's a big issue in art. Writing in particular is like much more difficult to detect AI writing. I have no doubt that people are going to accuse me of using AI. I have no doubt that we all will be accused of using AI. There's a lot of people who are really bad at detecting things and that are on a witch hunt about it for sure. I'm not discounting that. And I'm not discounting the fact that it can like ruin your career to be accused of using AI, but that's why I don't use it. I mean, that's not really why. That's like a reason that has emerged as I've refused to use it for other reasons. But like, that's a big reason that now I'm like even more certain that it's like not worth using at all, because I want someone to be able to like attach me to a lie detector and I can tell them I did not use AI for any part of this book and be able to say that truthfully. Like that is, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what's going to happen with AI because it's such a problem in the publishing industry. It's such a problem in art and it's so stupid. I just hate it. I hate AI so much. Like we're literally like just like killing the earth where it's like the earth was already dying and we're like, you know what? We should smother this bitch with a pillow. It's like, I just hate it so much. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you hated this video and you hate me and you hate my opinions about this, feel free to leave those hate comments in the comments. It helps increase my ranking in the algorithm, and I will do my best to not respond because it will waste my breath. I do think that this is something that we are like all gonna be like digging our heels in the sand either way, like on either side. But this is just a video to try to encourage people who are ambivalent or on the fence or like aren't sure exactly how they feel. This is a video to encourage you to consider all of the negative ramifications of using AI. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.